What's up, Chris?
Hey, Jose.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How's that?
So
How you
this,
enjoying that deck?
I love it. It's
I know
beautiful.
you are. I know you
It's
are.
amazing.
Oh,
Look at
look at
this.
that T-shirt. Look at that shirt. First thing I saw.
Look at that. Team technician. Remember Joe
Uh,
Farnsworth made us these?
yeah, I did. 2013,
12. 12.
12. Well,
Yeah.
one of the years you should have won.
Yeah. Uh,
It was either 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16. I don't know.
yeah. So this is Nate. You never got to meet him. You've seen a ton of pictures of him. I've sent you almost all of them.
Is this the Nate Lewiston guy?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I get a geek out. I don't be specific because there'll be a whole pilgrimage of people trying to come to the great Aceto's house to say, "Look at me."
Yeah.
And I win the Mr. Olympia. What area of Lewiston do you live in?
I live. You can't miss my house. It's like the presidents of the city's house. It is.
Well, that's not saying much for Lewiston, though.
I know. You're right. So then you know real estate.
So I grew up. I don't know if you know the area.
I know everything.
It was a side street. It's called Acadia Ave. There was
Yeah, of course
Arcadia
I know.
and
I-
Acadia
I
between
know
Lisbon and
exactly what it
Pleasant.
is.
Yeah,
I know
so
exactly what it is.
I grew up there.
I used to cut across Acadia when I used to bring my oldest son to the bus to go to charter school.
Yeah, between was it Lisbon and Pleasant? I think.
Yeah, Lisbon and Pleasant.
Yeah,
And
I went to the old St. Dom's when it was down on Bartlett Street.
Yeah,
A
they
nice
tore it
part of
down.
town. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I own two buildings on Bartlett Street. How's that?
No shit. Wow.
I knew that
That
was
was my whole family's still in Lewiston, so I go up every once in a while.
Poor guy, poor people, poor
I know.
guys, poor souls.
So, Chris, we're going to talk minimally about bodybuilding shit because it's so played out. But most of the questions that people wrote in were obviously bodybuilding related, but there were some real estate questions. I hyped you up as a real estate tycoon rather than the body and a master procreator, which a lot of people didn't catch that.
Yeah, there's lots of digs in there.
Yeah. Anyway, so what do you think of last minute voodoo in bodybuilding prep?
I mean, sometimes it's necessary, right? Sometimes if you know what you're doing, last minute tricks can work. But, when I do Instagram Live, most of the questions are like all, it's like people want, give me the hot stock, give me the hot tips, should I buy Tesla now? And it's just like people, what they're really saying is, I wanted, fabulous returns and just be lucky.
Yeah, get rich quick schemes.
Gets rich quick. And a lot of people who are like, give me the, I have problems with the carb up. Or, I have, the last 18 hours I have problems, which you could. But most of the people are looking for, instead of like basics and fundamentals, they're looking for the get rich quick schemes. I mean, they want the protocols, right?
Right.
I mean, people be, hey, I've been training 6 months and this is what I'm using. I'm like, why aren't you reading my question? Well, because it's ridiculous. You've been training 6 months and, I know you don't want to hear it, but you're using more stuff than people I know who are competing in the Olympia are using. And then they say, oh, Chris is a lying bastard,
Yeah.
You can't believe anything out of his mouth because people look for shortcuts.
In every field.
Yeah. You know what? One of my favorite sayings is to go up to people like, someone will show me like their house or like their crazy car. And I'll say, obviously they worked really, really hard to get the beautiful, crazy house or the crazy car. And I like to say, where'd you get, was it easy to get the money to get this? And if it was, let me know. Cause I want to, do what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm going to give you all my secrets.
So, hard work is the fundamentals for bodybuilding, and hard work is the fundamentals for everything.
For real estate, it doesn't matter what it is.
If you can find something to make money, for example, that's easy, please let me know. I want to do that.
Yeah, me too.
I want to sleep till noon, come over on the patio, have lunch at your house for 2 hours, and then head back and catch a movie and that would be the ideal, and that's not the real world.
And make a lot of money doing it.
That's Instagram.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's always going to be a lot of outliers too, right? There's the people that are working really, really hard and doing everything right, and then there's the people that with unbelievable genetics can be doing everything wrong, and beat the guy that's doing everything right. Just like I live in a high-rise building in downtown Boston, so there's people with Rolls Royces pulling up to the building, Lamborghinis, decked out Range Rovers, and they're not the best people to ask for how do you get that stuff because they were born into it.
Well,
You know,
I just
so-
got the first thing I was going to say, they could have inherited it. In other words, they could have been lucky that their fathers were born before them.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And I feel like that's common in the bodybuilding world too. There's a lot of people who look incredible giving terrible advice.
Well, it's the natural instinct, of course, is, in businesses to ask the guy who seems like he's at the top, how'd you get there? And the natural inclination is to go to the guy with the best shoulders and arms in the gym and say, what are you doing for shoulders and arms? And he'll tell you. But of course, as you said, his genetics had a huge role in determining, how easy his shoulders and arms respond. So, I mean, you have to, look outside the box, or, look at the reality of the situation.
Speaking of that, has Keone Pearson reached out to you yet?
Yeah, he interviewed me. Yeah, he interviewed me a couple days ago. Quick call and like 3 questions, and he said, "I've spoken to like 5 people. I'm going to make, some of them are really pushy, and I'm going to make a decision by Friday." And I,
So I got a question off of that. Because I've gotten a kick off of your Instagram because you clearly don't give a shit. You don't need a following. You don't need likes. You don't need to please everybody. And with what just happened with Keone making the decision to leave, I think his only sponsor, at least a significant income in his life. Have you ever had to cut a client because of let's say moral differences?
No, but I will have to say that people always ask me, who would you like to have coached? And almost all of them, all the answer I say, I could care, don't take it the wrong way, but I could care less, because I enjoy coaching who I coach, but I've never woken up in the morning and say, I wish I could work with Phil, or I wish I could work with, Gary Stridham. So for Keone to make a decision to walk away from money, that obviously he probably had a, monthly income over a principle, is saying a lot about his beliefs, his convictions, and about him as a person. So that is probably more than anything else my attraction to, like, wow, I'd like to work with Keone, because he put it on the line. Whether you agree with him or don't agree with him, he put it on the line, which is different than someone who, quote, puts it on the line, is not taking any risk. You know what I mean? The risk for him is money. And, of course, there's an assumption, well, I'll get, and people, I'll get a sponsor right away, but you might not. Coronavirus going on, times are tight, supplement sales with a lot of people are down. So, I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, that's kind of what I said the other day. I was like, I commend the young kid, giving up his income for what he stands for. That's very commendable.
Yeah.
I know it would be difficult for me to do that at 25 years old.
Yeah, 100%. It's easy to say at 53, oh, I would do that too. But it's easy. You're not in that position. So I don't know if I would. I don't know if at 25, I may justify it. I may do something like speak to, my opinion on Instagram, how it might differ from someone else's opinion who's paying you. But I don't know if I'd throw in the entire, put all my eggs in one basket and just throw them out to sea and say, you know what, it's so offensive to me that I can't take it anymore and I'm leaving. So that is unbelievable.
Yeah. So when someone asks, when are you going to write another book?
I have nothing else to say.
Right?
On Instagram, I said, when they come out with a new Bible, when they change the Bible up, and come up with a, new and improved edition. That's my way of just making fun of it and saying, I don't really have nothing new to say.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry. The body still responds the same to carbs, fats, proteins. So there's nothing to write.
Yeah.
You would have to be more of an autobiographical.
Yeah. I'd have to.
Autobiographical.
Yeah. Capricorns, we're smart, but we stumble over words.
Right.
People say, Chris, you stutter, and I'm like, who cares if I stutter? By the time it gets out, it's smarter than what you had to say. That's what I usually say back to people.
Right.
I think your whole Instagram following is waiting for the Everything You Need to Know About SARMS book.
Oh yeah, everyone SARMS. What do you think about SARMS? I said never used them. I say go to my Instagram, see everybody. No one's ever used them. People are like, oh, he's lying. I think if I knew about if they were so good, someone would have called me up and say, Chris, I'm using SARMS this week. Wow.
Yeah, Ramy got 330 pounds from SARMS.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't answer Ramy questions on the Instagram Live. I say go to his. I'm only one of 18 coaches. You have to go to someone else.
So that's this era of YouTube videos. I was telling Jose, I just signed up a kid for online training this past week, and he's done his research by watching the Greg Doucette videos and every Instagram YouTuber out there that's an expert, so-called expert. And so he came to me and said, I want to do my first show. I was training for the Boston Marathon. That got cut, so I want to switch gears and do men's physique. And here's the SARMS cycle I'm thinking of taking. What do you think? And he listed off letters and numbers, and I didn't know what anything was. And I used your reference. I said, I don't think there's anybody on the Mr. Olympia stage, on the Arnold stage, running SARM cycles. If they were better, everybody would be doing them. There's that myth of all the pros, none of the cons with the SARMs that seems to be out there. Yeah,
there's always cons with everything.
Chris, I just want to let you know.
There's cons with marriages, but go ahead.
We spoke to, take it easy. We spoke to Abdullah and Ahmad Ashka yesterday. And they named off all the people that Ramy had worked with. And I said, all right, here's a question for you. Out of all those guys, who was the best? And they both vehemently agreed it was you.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably setting me up for something. Who knows? I'm just kidding. The Ramy issue is just, it's so old news for me that I tell people I don't answer Ramy questions because the guy's been with every coach out there, and probably the sad part of it is, and maybe this is why what keeps happening to him is that nobody has afforded a phone call of, I'm going to go work with brother, you work with me. I bring you Mr. Olympia, George or Neil or Abdullah or Chad or everyone in between. It's just, some of those preps, I thought I was working with him for 7 months, 6 weeks, and then George is working for 6 weeks. Then he's back to me. It's like,
you find out on Instagram.
So it's like, really? I mean, it's not. It's nice that those guys said that he looked good with me, because funny when it was with me, isn't it funny when he was with me for 3 shows, 4 shows, one Olympia and three shows after the Olympia. I thought overall he looked tremendous, and then people thought he looked like crap, and now in retrospect everyone says, "Oh, that was the best he was."
Yeah,
I said that from the beginning. I couldn't get it out because people criticized my stuttering. I said that from the beginning. I said, this is the best he is right here. This is what you see is what you get.
Yeah. I saw him in person when you were helping him. And
went in the hotel room?
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Yeah, and once at down at Montanari's.
Yeah.
There. and he was clearly the best I'd seen. You know what? When he was with you, that was the best. And then when he won the New York Pro in 2013, that was the other most impressive time that I'd seen from him.
Yeah, clean lines,
Yeah.
2013.
He was a little lighter. You know, his
Yeah.
waist might have been a little tighter. He hadn't morphed into that 300-pound guy yet.
Yeah. Well, his back is against the wall now. You know, he's not qualified for the Olympia. I mean, a lot of people aren't qualified for the Olympia, and you know, I'm sure his level of confidence has a dent in it. You know,
Yeah.
because he's looking for what we started out with. He's looking to some degree for the magic formula.
Right.
He's looking for that formula. That's why he goes from person to person. See what formula you have.
Yeah.
You know.
Who's going to give him the quick muffin pump and
Yeah.
have him win the Olympia from it?
Yeah.
He's still fairly young, though, right? He's under 35, isn't he?
No, I think he's closer to 40 now.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to go through my his birthday was recently because
Mid-30s?
maybe 36, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a couple left, but
Yeah.
time's ticking.
Yeah,
So
time is ticking.
let's switch gears. I want to get into the real estate thing. How, when, how, and like, what was your first purchase? What were you thinking? Were you planning to end up, you know, making a career of that, or was it just like, oh, I'll try this out and buy some real estate?
When I was in 1984, I was in Muscle Up magazine. Bob Gruskin written an article. I was 17. I went to, he interviewed me, and I have that article today. And it said, you know, what do you plan to do in your future? I said, I'm going to go into either hotel and restaurant management, or I'm going to go into real estate. I was 17. What the attraction was is my father used to look at properties. Like, he'd put me in the car when I was little and would drive around and would see for sale signs and this and that, like commercial buildings. And sometimes, like, he'd list off like, well, if I had bought that 20 years ago, it's worth, you know, what it was for sale for 40, now it's worth 140, you know, that type of thing. So kind of picked up on that. And then about 20 years ago, I've never really told the story, but 20 years ago, I was trying to think of something that I could do that was big, but wasn't employee intensive. And then I kid and say, I wanted to do something where I could make money when I was sleeping, because I knew I couldn't work 9 to 5. 9 to 5. There's only so many 9 to 5 days you can work. I needed to be able to, like, literally, when I was sleeping, have some type of income coming in. So, and I needed, in 1999, the stock market crashed, and I needed, in my mind, something that was recession proof. You know, something that would not fall apart if the economy fell apart. And I thought, well, I always wanted to do real estate, and
Now, wait, that isn't necessarily true. Isn't real estate is not recession proof?
to some degree it is, because people always need a place to live.
Okay.
You know, that in my mind, I thought people always need a place to live, and then they move out from there. The next thing they do is put their cable on, you know, and the next thing they do is start spending extra income that they might have. And if they don't have extra income, they still have to have a place to live. So, amazingly, I went and I looked in Portland, Maine for multi-units. And I went to the neighborhood that I thought was a good neighborhood. And it was very rough. It was near the water. And the prices were fairly high. My friend told me about 35 miles away of Milltown, Lewiston, where they were giving the stuff away. So I only had so much money, which was not a lot. So I went to the dollar store, which is going to Lewiston, rather than going to like a middle of the road store, because the prices were higher in Portland, and I only had so much money I could buy more stuff in Lewiston.
Right.
So I didn't know what I was doing. So I bought some in one day, I went up there, me and my wife, and we saw 3 different buildings, and I said, we'll take this one, this one, this one. We got started. And after not too long, I really realized this idea, location, location, location is everything in real estate. And I realized I violated the most important rule from the get-go, that I was in a shitty location versus a great location. And I beat myself up on it a little bit, but then I realized, okay, if you understand location, go act on it. Go try to buy something in the best location. So here in Lewiston, I collected the dollar store stuff, but I was also, this connects to bodybuilding very well, because I collected the cheap stuff in bad neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, but I was able to make a run out of it. You know what I mean? I was able to do something with it. And I saw people next to me going bankrupt. And I thought, geez, if I don't go bankrupt, I must be doing something right. Because literally I'd see people did buy an apartment building, turn over, 12 months later, 18 months later, 2 years later, they'd go bankrupt. So it was like bodybuilding, like working with the guy with crappy genetics for the mass show. And I show up and Jose says, God, this guy's terrible, but he looks great. I said, and so what place is he going to get, Jose? He said, well, he's going to get 12, but he looks crazy for, what he's got. When I saw him 3 years ago, he was a disaster. So I thought, okay, if I can get my hands on a Dexter, a Rhoden, or a Phil, right? Location. If I can get my hands on something good, then if I'm doing something great with something bad, then I know I can make a run out of it.
Right.
So then I went.
So would you compare that to maybe a Guy Sistinino? So you made the best. You took
out of the worst
little dude,
Yeah.
the big bark,
Yeah.
and you made something out of him. You were able to get
That's right.
7 wins out of him.
That's right. Get 7 wins out of Guy. He had to correct me that he had 7.
Yeah.
But then he goes back to, and then he'll go exactly where he got all like 5 second place. So he'll say, I could have 13, I'm close to 13. And then he'll put that in perspective. He'll say on the list of that's like 2 more than Dorian.
He's a numbers guy. Theoretically, he's better than Dorian because he has
on paper. Yeah, more pro wins. 11 different cities, 12 different countries.
Yeah. So
I ended up discovering the idea of location. So I discovered in my mind that to some degree, you can never overpay for location, even though realtors will say you can overpay. In my mind, you can't. I mean, you can, but in 10 years, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I remember buying in Portland. I went back to the neighborhood where I wanted to buy into. And I literally saw Jose, me, my wife, and kids were driving by and staking out the neighborhood. And I saw someone taking a real estate sign and putting it right in front of the best location building possible. And
you said, don't even bother hammering that in.
It's exactly what I said. I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. And that location, the irony is I bought that location and I bought the one next door. And then that location, which in my mind, I thought was the prime best, absolute, unequivocally best, even though it had some rough edges to it, became just that. It became the absolute prime. And my real estate idols, really in Portland, my real estate idols ended up buying the building next to me and next to me. So it's like saying, I opened up a gym and Arnold and Lee Haney got memberships.
Right.
So
you knew you were doing something right.
So I knew I was doing something right. And I kept the junk and took good care of the junk, meaning the low end stuff. And then I moved into high end stuff. So I don't really have too much in the middle. It's all high end and then towards the bottom. Yeah.
So with you starting out in Lewiston and then making the move to Portland, which is 40 minutes or so, when did you decide to make the move to Miami, to Columbus, to where you can't go to them easily? you have to trust, you have to have some people on site that you trust, or it complicates things a little bit more to make that overnight money.
Yeah, in Miami, hold on, I gotta send this text because this guy's, we have a commercial or something. So in Miami, the way Miami came about is, remember the Great Recession?
In 2008?
Yeah.
So people asked, how do you balance bodybuilding and real estate? And that's it, folks. You just saw it.
Yeah.
While he's doing an interview, he's making a text.
So the Miami actually is, people always sell in fear. They sell everything in fear. I mean, there's reasons to sell anything: stocks, real estate, relationships break up because of fear, the unknowns, and that I know for sure. And 2008, the stock market crashed, and which in turn it was caused by over leveraging of real estate. And Miami was a prime example. You could go into buy a condo, which I didn't know. You could go and buy a condo in Miami with no money down, nothing, zero. Didn't even have to show your income. So me and my wife went down there, I think in 2008, and they were giving stuff away, literally. I mean, so cheap. And we went down in the dead of the horrible Maine winter because the economy was affecting us too. And I said, we just need to get out of here and relax. I can't, it's just too much, 15 feet of snow and, the economy falling apart. So we went down to Florida, stayed in Miami Beach, right next to where you stayed, Jose. And I went out on the deck with a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. And in my mind, I said, I will be on this beach within 1 year. And so we went and we found a real estate broker, and I had him show me a million different things. And I said, I know exactly where I want to be, which building. If something comes up, let me know. And the craziness is the broker was like demoralized because 2 years ago they were selling things left, right, and center. Now he wasn't selling anything because of the foreclosure crisis. So I told him, this is what we're looking for. If something comes up, you have my number, and I'm dead serious. Let me know, and I'll take something. So maybe 8 months later, I was at my in-laws' house, and he called. It has a Miami number, and I knew the only person who's calling me from Miami has to be this guy. And he said, there's a unit that you might be interested in, came on the market today. I said, can you have my friend come down and take a look at it? He'll be there in like 2 hours. My friend came down, and he said, Chris, it's the best location possible. And it goes back to location. I said, tell the broker we'll take it. So we ended up going down there. So, but managing it, is the key to like any business probably. You could have the best gym, best equipment, a lot of members, but if it's mismanaged, you could have a great supplement company, a lot of sales, a lot of people working for you, or a small amount of people working for you if it's mismanaged. So real estate's the same. You have to manage it. You have to know what's going on everywhere all the time. But it doesn't matter, if you know how to, it goes back to like, if I can manage stuff in Lewiston, I can do it. If I can do it anywhere. If I can take that guy with the worst genetics in the entire city of Boston and he can crack the top 5 at the Mass, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you're on your way. So
you win. So you went to Springfield College, you studied like sports medicine.
Yeah. Applied exercise science.
Yeah. Why didn't you, if you knew at 17 you want to be in hotel management or real estate, why didn't you, focus in that direction? What
it's a great question because I didn't know, I knew the end, but I didn't know how to get there. Like I didn't know, I grew up in Maine. So like with my kids, I try to encourage them, don't forget you can be a doctor. Don't forget you can be a lawyer. You can be a gym owner. You can be a plumber. You can be an electrician. There's options. Even though I had this real estate in my mind, I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't have a mentor to show me how to do it. So the conservative route was just to stick with what you were doing and what you knew, and I was just bodybuilding.
Right.
So the only thing I liked and knew was associated with that at an education level was, health and science. But, looking back, had I known better, I would have, or ideally, it would have been nice to be introduced to someone who's doing something in real estate to learn something from him rather than going to college, or, get some direction. When you're young, you don't know what you want to do. You might know, you might want to be something, but you don't know what that even means. So I wanted to be in real estate, but I didn't know anything about it, other than I liked buildings that my father used to drive me by and we used to look at, when I took my kids, when they were homeschooled, I took them to see who's now my neighbor, one of my real estate idols in Portland. I showed you his hotel, Jose, the other day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
He has multiple hotels, and I took my kids. He needed to see me on a meeting for something. So I didn't tell him that I was bringing my kids. We went up to his office, beautiful office, and
all of them, or just the two older boys?
Just the two older boys. And I said, hey, Jim, I homeschool my kids. Actually, my wife does it. I just take them on these little field trips, and I want to be able to expose them to different people and how different people think and so forth, which I think is as important as getting any college degree. So we sit down and I say, and Jim tells them the story of his success, which is amazing. And I said to him, Jim, do you mind me asking you a couple questions? I said, yeah, I don't mind it. I said, do you think you're smarter than me? He said, no. I said, do you think you work harder than me? He said, unequivocally. I never met the guy. And he just told, and I stopped and I asked my kids, did you get something out of that? The point is, I just met him and he will not even accept the idea that I work harder than him. So it goes back to the bodybuilding thing, right? You got to be the hardest worker out there to be successful. So, I mean, he's had everything's been lined up for him, and he knows how to do things, from financing, which is an advantage over people who don't know how to do it, to the accounting, to, he's well-versed in business. I have no business real background. So he knows the avenues to put together really big projects. But when I asked him, are you smarter than me? He said, no, I don't think so. When I asked him if he worked harder, he would not let me cross that line. He said, no way.
Right.
There's no way. And I love the answer, because I told my kid, that's everything right there. That's a lot of everything is hard work, whether you're going to be doing real estate, whether you're going to be doing sports, whether you're going to be doing, a lawyer, whether you're going to be a plumber, or a school teacher. Hard work gets you ahead.
Absolutely.
Not the magic formulas.
Right. So with these drastic two different careers, real estate side, bodybuilding coach side, either of them would be a full-time job for any normal person. And you have a family on top of that, right? Is two older kids and one young one?
Two, and there's four. Hold on, I got
Four.
the store. Yeah.
So what's your thought process on time management, or what advice would you give to somebody who's trying to let's say bodybuild, but also have a career separate from that, because they're not going to put all their eggs in that basket in terms of generating an income while having a significant other? How do you juggle that?
I always kid with the bodybuilders and say, let's get this straight. Make sure your wife or girlfriend knows they come last in this.
For 16 weeks anyway.
Yeah, you need to, in business, what you're doing, you need to be able to not overthink. That's one thing. And you need to, if you can delegate at all, you need to be able to delegate and say, John, you do it. This is your tasks, because your time is far more valuable than you going out and doing menial or even not so menial tasks. So you got to be able to delegate with the business. And when you're doing your bodybuilding, all you can do is execute, your training and your diet and leave the gym. You can't worry. you can't worry about things that that you can't control. So you can only control your training. You can only control your diet. The training does not take that long, other than getting to the gym and from the gym. That's the hardest part. You know, and the diet, you know, doesn't take that long to prepare the food. You know, I think people like think that they have to be thinking about it all day long. And that's why sometimes it's good to have another distraction like a business, because if you think about it all day long, the devil's in the details. You start, you know, you can't get out of your own head. You know, a lot of times, honestly, I'm so busy, you know, that I never worry about like, oh, I wonder how so-and-so looks. You know, there's only 21 days out. You know, I know how he looks. You know, I should be on top of it, but I don't have to be thinking about it 24 hours a day to you know, to be able to get him from point A to point B. So the same thing is in business too, or like my real estate, I'll make decisions, and, you know, I try not to rush the decisions, but the decisions I make, sometimes they're bad ones, and you know, you have to live with them. You can't, you know, hit yourself over the head for making a bad decision. You're always going to make bad decisions. You're going to make bad bodybuilding decisions. You're going to make bad relationship decisions. You're going to make bad business decisions. You know, if you can learn from them, that's good, you know, and there's a benefit to that. But I think, you know, if you schedule your time wisely, you know, you can get a lot more done in the day than you think.
Chris, I always found my best preps almost every time were my busiest times.
Oh yeah.
When I had, you know, 10 appointments a day training people, I had stuff to do around the house, different projects going on. When I was at my busiest, I had the least amount of stress with concerning bodybuilding, but my body would respond the best. I would end up in my best condition being busy, rather than the times when I wasn't as busy sitting around thinking about it. Well, let me try this today or something. You know, the busier you can stay, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, no,
I've always found that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know, I usually get worried when someone says, you know, I got a contract, I get a lot more free time. Like, oh, gosh,
Right.
You know, that might backfire on you.
Yeah, it usually does.
Yeah.
You know, they perform a lot better when they're hungry, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it.
The year I won the Arnold, 2015, we got absolutely demolished. We got 9 feet of snow in February alone. Can you imagine that?
Insane.
So I was shoveling, snow blowing, you know, feet of snow at a time to find a gym that was open. Sometimes I had to drive 45 minutes to find a gym. But it was the fact that I was so busy and so focused on it that it actually made me the best I ever was, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for being so busy that if you're so busy, you know, it's not the total time that you give to something, it's the quality of the time. You know, I mean, I tell my kids all the time, I don't have time for you today. Meaning I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to give my 6-year-old, you know, an hour of phony time when I'm going to be on my phone, you know, and fiddle around and like so-and-so's going to call me, text me. But I'd rather give them, you know,
real time at the park.
Yeah, real time.
Right.
You know, you know, because so it's the same thing, you know, with bodybuilding. You got to give it your 100% effort in the time that you have it. Same thing with business. I mean, it doesn't take an enormous amount. I mean, it takes a lot of time, of course.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take, you know, enormous. I mean, I'm not Elon Musk building like ships and building tunnels and, you know, building electric cars all at once. Yeah. You know, we're just juggling some bodybuilding clients and a few buildings.
So listen, back to the real estate thing. Did you ever get into flipping any properties, or is it strictly rentals?
It's strictly rentals. I sold a couple, 2 or 3, when I thought they were just overvalued and not the best building that I wanted to keep. If something was overvalued temporarily and it was in the best location, I still wouldn't sell it. But you know, I mean, we just talked about time, but to do flips, you need time. because you're dealing with, like I'm doing a remodel right now on one apartment. It's taken so long. So to do a flip, you know, you have to bring in the electrician, pain in the ass, you know, plumber, pain, meaning their schedules are tight.
Yeah.
You know, someone who knows how to do tile work, change, move around walls possibly, you know, all that. I mean, I would enjoy doing it, I'm sure. But there's only so much you can do too at the same time. You know, it's like real estate. I mean, I look all day long. It's ridiculous. It's another thing. Talk about time. Every single time I'm on the computer, I look somewhere just out of curiosity. You know, it's like looking at bodybuilding pictures, right? Yeah. You know, bodybuilding magazines, when they're just magazines, you just look at the picture, you know, you just pick one up all the time. Look. You know, I'll turn on the internet. And
I do it every day looking at Zillow.
Yeah. I look all the time. I looked at Zillow, you know, I get something coming automatically from couple brokers, you know, all the time. I look in Manhattan. I looked at something in Manhattan today. And you know what, Jose? I could make that, if I didn't have 4 kids and I had a partner, I could make it go. Like in Victor Martinez's old neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. So
Washington Heights.
Those condos you showed me last week in Miami, did you end up going for one of them?
No, because I showed Jose like, which I like, they're hotel condos. But
gorgeous.
Yeah, they're ridiculously gorgeous. They're in Miami, overlooking Biscayne Bay. Absolutely crazy gorgeous and cheap.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
I thought they'd be over $1 million easy.
Easy. I didn't, just because, you know, there's only so much you can do, right? You know, get you doing like a short-term rental, like Airbnbs, which I do too.
Yeah.
It's kind of time consuming. So hotel condo rental would be time consuming. I have one hotel condo rental in Old Orchard Beach that I have someone do for me. You know, like I pay her, she checks clients in, checks clients out. She does the cleaning, she does that. She does the billing. Costs me a lot, which I could save, but I don't have the time to, you know what I mean? It's people checking in, checking out all the time versus that would be in Miami, a hotel condo versus, you know, renting something for a 12-month lease. You give them the keys and, you know, maybe after a month, after 1 year, they renew the lease.
Yeah.
You know,
so
it's a bit easier.
You're going to prep the owner of Airbnb?
What's that?
Is it true you're going to prep the owner of Airbnb?
Yeah, Brian Chefsky. I direct messaged him on
I heard he's ripped.
I direct messaged him on Instagram. He never replied. And sometimes, like, I had recent complaints, Jose, about like when we cancel people, we had to cancel people because of the coronavirus, and they charge us $50 each time. So I didn't want to pay the $50, and I text message or send an email to the Airbnb people, and they send it back, and I say Brian should be ashamed of himself. I'm dead serious. I'll send you the texts. He should be ashamed of people ripping him off. You know.
Yeah.
So somebody was on Instagram Live says he sees him every day in his gym. Wow.
He's a young guy, right?
Yeah, young guy. I think he went to college in Mass, or did he go to Springfield College? I'm dead serious.
I don't know.
I think he went to college in Mass, Western Mass.
I do think he's local though, because they did a special on him recently on the news.
Yeah.
In the Boston news. Go ahead, Nate.
How do you navigate this new era of Airbnb, right? The game has changed a lot from when you got into real estate, where it's just rentals, to now the Airbnb thing. How did you learn how to get into that? And then how do you decide whether you're going to make something a 12-month rental or an Airbnb?
Depends on.
He's got talent. Look how he holds his face still like that.
It's frozen.
It's unbelievable. So, Chris, I was about to do an impression and see if he could guess who I was. And I was going to tell him, right now, Chris, not only your sound is bad, but behind you, that desk drawer is open. I need you to turn around and shut that desk drawer because it's really bothering me. And he'd know immediately who it was.
Of course. Chris
and while you're at
ruining everybody's podcast.
I'm going to have some Fiberlize so I can take a nice shit after this.
And protect yourself from coronavirus.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got all the vitamins. Where is he? Is he calling back?
We'll see if he jumps back in. Yeah, I have to click on the link.
Chris is a super, super interesting dude that, like, everyone wants to talk protein and prep and all that kind of. His circle of friends is so vast, like the amount of interesting stories he's told me from big time lawyers to big time real estate moguls and you know, those are the interesting things that I've learned through Chris.
You can tell he doesn't get down into the weeds when you don't have to.
Right.
Like if someone came to us and said, hey, you guys have been trainers for a while. I just got my certification. What do I need to do to be a good trainer? And maybe they came to you and they said, so what I was told is as soon as you get a client, you got to write out a 6-month program of how every workout's going to go and however, you know, and you and I would look at them like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Who knows where they're going to be 2 months from now? You can't write that shit out, you know, like stop worrying about that stuff.
Right.
Think bigger picture rather than being down, you know, in the weeds and trying to plan everything out and go with what they're giving you.
Yeah. But he's very present, like with the prep, you know, he's very always on top of it, but it's not something that he, you know, writes down, has spreadsheets and all this shit. He knows what's going on because he's got a familiarity with you and he talks to you enough.
Right.
But sometimes, you know, he's going to be like, what do I have you doing right now? Oh, okay. All right. Well, do that again, you know, but it works.
Right. You're getting him probably driving to Portland to check on a building or something, right? He's having to multitask. He's not sitting at just a desk all day, only doing contest prep for people.
You know what the funniest thing is too? Is he's going to call back on his phone because his internet went out.
Oh, gotcha. Here he is.
Ask him what he drives for a car.
I've heard him talk about it.
Yeah.
It's connecting audio now.
Chris.
Yeah, my internet in Lewiston, Maine is out.
All right. The audio is terrible, but we'll be able to read your lips anyway. Tell us about your car.
Hold on, take my phone out.
The car?
Oh, there we go. That's better.
The car is in perfect condition. Only Shawn Rhoden says he hates it. It's 1994 Mercedes 300. It's
Mercedes 300. The thing is mint.
It's in mint condition. Palumbo thinks I should buy a new one. I said, this one's paid off for like 17 years. Cost me nothing.
How many miles on it, Chris?
143,000. That's it.
140. And no major work you've had to do or anything?
No, nothing.
You just stay up on the oil changes and
That's it.
you're good.
I've never touched the engine. I've never touched nothing. I put in some new brakes. So before I run over Neil Hill, I can make sure my brakes work.
So you're going to let Jabril have it next year?
I don't know. I always tell them, I say, that's my dream car. Don't go near it. I threaten them with their bikes. Don't go near it. That's my dream car. And of course, it's got bike park.
He'll know he's special if you give it to him. Give him a dream car.
Well,
He's
I
got to
don't
be
know
getting his license soon, right?
yeah, this year.
Wow. So would he even fit in that thing? He's about 4 inches taller than you.
No, it'd be ridiculous. His head would hit the ceiling.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So
what
Chris,
happened
how have things been in Lewiston with everything going on? How's your family been dealing? I know you're turning into a doomsday prepper with your big meat fridge, stocking up for the worst case scenario.
Yeah, we're doing good. You know, same as I guess everywhere else, right? Everything's shut down up until very, very, very recent. You know.
Yeah, the gyms opened up yesterday, right? My mom texted me about it.
I don't know. I haven't been to a gym in 20 years, so I wouldn't know.
You don't go and visit Skip? Is his place open?
No, I talked to him, you know, I text him here and there, but he's over 75, so he's, you know, paranoid going out and someone coughing near him and having
really?
little red things float into his nose, you know, like the little red.
Yeah. So you don't know he's not going to open the gym back up?
I don't know what's happening.
I love that guy. Skip
Yeah,
Rob.
great.
Awesome guy. Great gym.
Yeah,
He rules it with an iron fist. The place is spotless.
yeah, super guy.
Is that in Portland?
That's that's on the Portland Westbrook line. Yeah, that's Portland still.
What's that, about 2 hours from you?
No, it's like 40 minutes. My house to that door.
Oh, I'm the one who drove 2 hours to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a hike. So we have a couple more questions. I asked you the one about flipping. What was the fattest you ever seen Jose?
Probably about 7 weeks before the Olympia or his third.
In 2016.
2016.
That's the answer I said too.
42 days
went
up.
from 240 to 208 in under 7 weeks. I
Yeah,
think I was like 242. So
Yeah.
grotesquely, morbidly obese.
yeah.
Because
It's
I
still
just got back from my honeymoon.
yeah.
I was disgusting, but I did it.
Another screwing.
Yeah. Hey, I made it. I made it through a crazy prep and still looked great that year.
Yeah, you did look tremendous.
Yeah.
Was that
So-
probably the worst that you've seen somebody starting a prep? Was
No,
Jose after the wedding? Does that win first place?
Will Harris is the all-time worst.
What year?
The year he qualified for the Olympia, 207, he looked like just like every description of obese. He was obese. Yeah,
Yeah.
he looked like a Shar-Pei dog.
He's about what, 5'9", 5'10", maybe,
Yeah, he's about 5'10". Yeah.
and he was over 300 pounds, right?
Oh, he was probably 340 when he started that prep.
Wow. So I don't know if you would remember him. Will was, they call him like a vampire because he would never really admit to his age. He's he's probably older than you, right, Chris?
Yeah, oh yeah, he's older than me for sure.
What's the C for, Chris?
Yeah,
That's weird. Yeah, he's probably 56, 57.
yeah, he's up there for sure.
Yeah.
He's older.
He had an unbelievable physique, though. Like real tiny waist.
Oh
He was
yeah,
super wide.
yeah, phenomenal. I still keep in touch with him.
He decided to take it seriously too late in his life, though.
Yeah. He was bodybuilding for years, but didn't really get really everything together till later.
Yeah. Yeah, Will was good. I wonder if he's going back to Golds. They supposedly
Yeah.
opened this week.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
My brother's away on vacation. We brought the kids hiking out in by Mammoth Mountain and another place. I forget. Yosemite.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, they love that. Hiking and they rent these huge tents that have beds in them.
Mm-hmm.
And they each get their own bed in a giant tent. I'm like, he calls it glamping.
Yeah, glamorous camping.
Yeah.
I
He's
have to have
excited.
an electric coffee pot that I can plug in.
Yeah.
That's about as camping as I go.
Yeah. You don't need anything else. As long as you get your coffee, you're good.
That's right.
When was the last time you bought a new pair of shoes? Or did Guy Sistanino buy you your last pair of shoes?
I think Guy bought my last pair of shoes. Maybe my wife probably bought a pair of shoes. I probably bought 3 pairs of shoes in 20 years, 15 years.
Yeah. So one year we were in Columbus, and Chris is walking around like, "Oh, my back is killing me," and Guy's like, "Look at your damn shoes; they had holes in them." So Guy went out and bought him a pair of shoes.
Yeah, he did. That was
And
the
it
second.
worked, right?
Yeah. He had bought Guys bought me 2 pairs of shoes in like the last 7 years.
That's funny.
So I have a question here. I guess it's more of a statement, but I want to get your take on it. I saw this a statement on Instagram a couple days ago. It has to do with people's genetic potential, how far they could go. So the guy was saying, if you haven't placed top 3 as an amateur after competing for 4 or 5 years, you're not going to. If you've been a pro for 4 or 5 years and you haven't placed, you aren't going to. What's your take on that?
It's like an internet person trying to dispel some nonsensical wisdom that's not wisdom.
Right.
It's, you know, I mean, it's just everyone has a voice now on the internet, and that's great. But and I understand, you know, people say, how do I know if I have good genetics? I said, you'll know after 6 months. You know, if you train for 6 months and you start putting on muscle, then, you know, then you have good genetics. If you train for 6 months and you put on no muscle, then you don't have good genetics. But I mean, I would have to give it some thought, but I can probably go through a list of people who, I mean, Jonas was dead last in the Nationals 2 years ago. He probably should have won the overall in Miami. You know, he's a good example. I mean, I would consider that Ronnie Coleman, or just, I mean, the whole idea of putting some type of credence on the idea that genetics, of course it's important, but the idea that you are going to waste your own time as a bodybuilder thinking about, instead of progress, what is my genetic cap? By thinking of it, that you have a genetic cap, then by definition, you're going to be a shitty bodybuilder.
Right.
You know, I tell people all the time. I mean, I was just on the phone with Jonathan Hambrick texting a couple days ago, and he was laughing because he said, I sent you these pictures when I, you know, remember I sent you these pictures? Look how terrible I looked. And I said, oh, yeah, gosh, I guess you did. He said, you told me you were going to win a pro show within 1 year. I said, well, I could see that you had there, but I said, did I ask you if you work hard? He said, you know, I mean, that's like the guy with the real estate guy. It's a non-argument. It's a non-discussion to have that he's a super hard worker. But I mean, if I told him, well, you know, in the next year, I think you could make top 10 in a pro show, then there's your cap. There's your mental cap.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think anyone should put a cap on themselves, and they sure as hell shouldn't listen to someone else trying to tell them that they have a cap.
Right. By even thinking about it, you're setting a cap.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah. So with the if you're going to take in a new client like Keone potentially coming in, or whoever new people you might take on, what are some of the things you're screening for to see whether it's somebody you want to work with? And then once you take them on, what are some of the common mistakes you see people doing, whether it's the gear's too high or relying on that stuff as opposed to food or training or any of that stuff?
Well, I mean, I like to take on who I gel with. I mean, that's you know, that's always, but I'll take on people who I don't necessarily gel with, because sometimes I take them on and I find out, geez, once I like them more than I thought, you know. And I think I can dislike someone and still prep them for a show. But I think in terms of getting ready for a show, people need to get out of their heads, you know, what they're supposed to do. You know, it's a week out. Aren't I supposed to do this? Or, you know, it's 8 weeks out. Aren't I supposed to do this because, you know, Jose and this guy are doing this at 6 weeks out. Shouldn't I be doing this? And that could be anything from diet to training to cardio to, you know, you have to get it out of your head, you know, what others do as being a successful formula for you. Sure, there's like a common thread that runs through everything, you know, but it's best to try to start from scratch and try to come up with some type of formula that works best with your body. Because once you can figure out a formula that works best with your body, you know, that's truly your own blueprint that gets you, you know, over the top.
Hey, so 2 questions. Have you seen any of the recent photos of George Peterson? And where do you see him falling at the Olympia?
Yeah, I've seen him only because somehow when you go on Instagram, you know, like a couple different sites that I follow, you know, like you've been to this site, so it comes up.
Right.
Like I don't go to, because I don't really go to anyone's Instagram sites, and I don't go on Facebook. But I think he'll do really well in the 212. I think the 212 is wide open. I don't think Kamal has any lock on the show. I don't think Derek Lunsford has any lock on the show. You know, if I was George Peterson, I'd be more afraid of. Go ahead, finish my sentence for me, Jose. I'd be more afraid of
him not making weight than he is of any athlete.
Well, I mean, there's nothing to fear, but I mean, he's going to do really well.
More afraid of Clarita than he is of
Clarita.
Yeah,
Clarita's got the ability to expose him because, to me, they are both phenomenal, and Clarita's shorter stature makes him look like he's filled out more.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
More complete. Yeah. George might still have gaps in the legs that we don't know of.
Yeah.
It may just appear as though he has gaps because he's probably 8 inches taller than Clarita.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, you just got to get these guys on stage and see them side by side, you know, and see how they look and flow and what their real condition is like under the lights versus Instagram condition. Not to say George won't have great condition, but you know, there's a difference between getting under the lights as Derek Farnsworth. Derek Lunsfeld has found out every single year that he's done the show.
Yeah.
And pictures that you post running into a show. I mean, I could show you pictures of Jose 6 weeks out and Rhoden 6 weeks out and Kamal 6 weeks out. And people say they're not going to be ready in 6 weeks. I said, well, we'll see.
Right.
You know, so, but he's a great bodybuilder. You know, he's going to do really well. I think he might still have issues. I think the biggest issue for him is not going to be muscle. It's going to be long arms, long legs, which is a hard, you know, you'll see it on stage when you see it on stage. It's either going to be a problem for him, a minor problem, or not a problem.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to come off as tall. I believe he's 5'8".
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, come off as tall. People, I get that, but people wouldn't understand that.
Yeah, and Lunsford is a very tall 5'5".
Yeah.
Imagine Lunsford looks very tall in the lineup, and then you add another 3 inches to that. That's,
yeah. No. You're right.
You don't know until he's standing there.
That's right.
You got anything else?
No, my battery's got 20 more on it, so that's it.
All right, Chris. Thanks a lot for coming on and not talking too much bodybuilding and giving us some insight with your real estate.
Well, so people say he should stick in his lane and just talk bodybuilding.
No, I wanted to hear the real estate stuff. I'm looking to go that way.
I say it's my life. I can drive in any lane I want.
Yeah, exactly. Nate.
What's that?
Pause?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to go down to Bar Street and see Nate's old house, Arcadia Street.
Watch out for Kennedy Park down there.
Oh, yeah.
Take some pictures and send them to me.
Kennedy Park is where Tony Atlas was homeless.
That's right.
Wow.
You found frozen on a bench, right?
Yeah. I see him around town once in a while. I love Tony. I always, it's terrible. I always say, we're going to get together. He said, yeah, let's get together, because he loves bodybuilding and he's a great guy. And I just always forget. My wife says, why don't you get together with Tony? I'm like, because I forget, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go by my house, send a pic to Jose. It's 100 Acadia Ave is what I grew up on.
100, easy. Jose, yeah. I'll get one at some point, 100 Acadia.
All right.
Later.
All right, see you guys.
See you, Chris.